Thankfully, birds don't have to be murdered in order for a woman to have atonement from her monthly cycle in the Jewish or the Hebrew community. It is a great thing. But yes, Leviticus 15:19 through 33. I don't do sermons. We could do a talk. But this was true as far as the Levitical laws are concerned. In the Levitical laws, a woman who has her monthly cycle, she is to give 4 birds in order for her to get atonement for her monthly menstrual cycle that is as natural as the air that you breathe. And if a man were to sleep with her, he would also be considered ceremonially unclean and also have to make sacrifices as well. Now, these 2 birds were given as a burnt offering, while 2 other birds were given as another type of offering to the priest every month for a woman to find herself clean after the 8th day. I feel bad for any woman whose cycle lasted longer than that. But the woman was considered unclean, and she was ceremonially unclean. She couldn't enter the tent of meeting. She could not participate in any of pretty much life, because everything she sat on, everything she touched was then considered unclean, and anybody who touched it or sat on it, they were considered unclean as well. And if a man had sex with her, like I said earlier, he would be considered unclean. If he touched her, he would be then also considered unclean. Thankfully, the Jewish and Hebrew society has come to grips with modern social norms, and in those modern social norms, recognizing that it is the natural state for a woman in her reproductive system to go through her menstrual cycle, she is now allowed to go into the synagogues. She is now allowed to sit on the same bed as her husband and that sort of thing. Now, there are some Jewish sects who still practice that. And Christians are supposed to still practice this as well. It was one of those questions that I asked pastors back in the day that none of them could actually give me a sufficient answer as to why they don't do that anymore when it's according to the Levitical laws to which they are supposed to follow. Of course, they gave me the bullshit about grace and Jesus has came and he was the ultimate sacrifice. But Jesus also said that you're supposed to continue to follow the law, that he came not to take one tittle from it. You're still supposed to keep the traditions. But yet people don't. Well, sort of. They keep the ones that they like, but they don't keep the other ones. For instance, the Jewish community is serious business about them Levitical laws as far as what you're supposed to eat and how you're supposed to eat it. The Hebrews are the same way. Don't eat that pig. Don't eat nothing that got blood in it. But yet, when it comes to things that are outside of what our society say is normal and how our society has moved and progressed, those laws they ignore. You can't choose which Levitical laws you want to follow and which ones you don't want to follow. If you claim to be somebody who follows this book, you're supposed to follow all of them. You follow your little holy days, so why aren't you following these same principles as far as how that's supposed to work? I've actually met many Hebrew Israelite women who got out of it because of the ridiculousness of the fact that she is considered unclean and can't go to service because or into the temple because she's on her cycle. Having your cycle is a cleaning process of the body. It's a cleansing process. So something that automatically makes the body clean is considered unclean to this God. That sounds like this God did not understand the dynamics of the anatomy to which it claims to have put in place for a woman's body to be cleansed after she goes through an ovulation cycle. It further demonstrates that people are believing in the words and the mindset of a people who did not understand the natural forces of the body and the natural forces of nature and the natural forces of the universe. And instead, they put their God on it to make it seem like it was something dirty, like it was something wrong with it. This is one of those reasons why we walk away from this book, we walk away from this religion, we walk away from this culture and this tradition. I am so thankful that this is not the culture and traditions of my ancestors, because I know where my ancestors come from. Before any Hebrew Israelite come on here and try to tell me that, boy, you don't know that you're a Hebrew Israelite. Hell no, I'm not a Hebrew Israelite. I'm not Israelite. My family never came from there at all. My family came from Mali and it came from Nigeria. It did not come from from the Levant, not even slightly. So therefore, I would never do this. And thankfully, Jews don't do this for the most part today. There are some Jewish communities that still practice the level of it, whereas the woman is considered unclean. They don't touch her. They don't sleep on the same bed. Don't sleep on the same sofa. All those sorts of things. There are some Islamic groups who still practice this. I remember being in Dubai. It was the first time I saw it. Being in Dubai and seeing how when the woman was on her menstrual cycle, there was a whole nother section of the house that she can only be in during that time frame, so that the man can have free run of the normal spaces in the house and not have to worry about being considered unclean. So there are some people who still do that. It makes no sense, because the actual process is a cleaning process for the woman. And we know that scientifically today, but yet they want to give more credit to some people 2,500 years ago who wrote about something because they didn't understand how it actually works. But y'all have a great day. And remember always, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.